Hello everybody, welcome back. I'm the Strategy Professor, and today we're going to be starting a brand new campaign using the SFO mod Grimhammer 2, so I'll have a link in the description if you want to use this mod. It's fantastic, adds a lot of extra strategic diversity to the game. It's free. Venrus and his crew make a fantastic product, so be sure to go check them out, support them if you enjoy the content. We're going to be doing Norsca with Wulfrik on Legendary today with Mortal Empire, so let's go ahead and get in here.
I am Tyrion.
This is a very difficult campaign to start off with. It's no joke. I think it's one of the most difficult in the game, and the main reason for that is you don't have a really strong edge. It says normal, which is a joke, as a starting position. It's extremely hard, as you'll see when we get in there. And the big thing is, like, Wulfrik doesn't have any magic, and you don't get a spellcaster early on. You can't get to casters until tier 3, but it's really hard to get enough growth and enough security to get to tier 3 because everybody hates you and you're surrounded by hostility. You can't get walls in your main town. You have low growth, you have public order problems. So it's really difficult to get any magic early on. And then also, he's an okay duelist, but he's not good against hordes and hordes of units, which is what we're going to face early on. So he does have some nice buffs later on in the game with his mammoths. And he does get a discount on Marauders, which does let you field a few more of them, but he just doesn't quite have the same kind of like oomph and sort of impact that you can get with a lot of the other campaigns with different kinds of edges that you can get early on. So it's basically just you with like your one, sort of horde that you're going to have versus just swarms and swarms of enemies that are going to have very similar units. And so you really have to outplay them hard with micro, and it can get pretty intense because some of these fights will be like 30 on 30, 40 on 40 early on. And so it can get pretty rough. So buckle in. It's going to be a fun, exciting campaign. His buffs, you get naval movement range, which is great for later on. You do have to travel around the map and try to hit certain, or it's fun to try to hit these certain landmark buildings that'll give you huge buffs. And then you get melee for mammoths, which are a tier 4 unit later on. Extra money from raiding, which is kind of whatever. You get a little bit of money from that as time goes on. Reinforcement range doesn't matter that much. It's okay sometimes. Upkeep for Marauders is very good early. That does allow us to field more units. All of your units cause fear, which is okay. You already have quite a few fear-inducing units, like your skin wolves and things like that. But that is handy. And then the Norscan fleet, so you can't do ambush stance, I guess, with the Norscan fleet, but you do get a special mechanic where you can build things like a horde faction as you build up your ships, which is pretty cool. But let's go ahead and get in here. So legendary, very hard. And how I'm going to do this, I have practiced this campaign several times to try to figure out what the optimal start is at the beginning. And like I said, it is very difficult. Around episode 2, we'll get some good fights in episode 1, but it's usually about maybe your 7th or 8th turn in where it really starts to get super spicy. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about the different strategic aspects of the Norscans during the load screen so that we can do it a little bit faster and be more efficient with our time. And I'm going to wait to talk about some of the later tier techs and some of the buildings because I don't want to spend like 2 hours talking about everything and then having to restart all over again. So we'll talk about it spaced out as we go on and as it becomes more relevant, as it becomes more clear that I'm not going to get obliterated in the first 20 turns. Hopefully that becomes clear. This playthrough. But this is also a sponsored campaign, so special thanks to Zach and Joel for sponsoring this campaign. They donated over $100 to see a full entire Norsca campaign, so we will do this beginning to end, all of the victory objectives. And I think it's pretty cool with Norsca because kind of like Chaos, which I'm also running a full Chaos campaign right now, you don't get as much like massive superiority from like just taking over raw territories because we can't really claim anything that's not a port lower than Norsca. So like most of the stuff on the map we can't occupy. We can only burn it. Other than like some specific faction capitals if we research for it, and then the ports. Okay. Let's talk about a couple of mechanics here. So like I mentioned before, this is where you start off as your capital. You're surrounded by hostiles. We do have a non-aggression temporarily with these guys, but that doesn't last. And then, of course, the humans hate us, but all of the other tribes hate us as well. So we're just kind of right in the middle of everybody. It's a much harder start position than Throg. Throg starts over here, and it's a lot more secure because you kind of have this top-end frozen sea, so you only have hostility from sort of these directions. And it's a bit more measured than Wulfrik. And Throg is way better early on because he's this like huge troll that does massive AoE attacks. He has Copious Vomit, which is like a free sort of magical missiles type of spell that he gets, and he has huge regeneration, so he's a lot better against swarms and marauders than Wulfrik is.
I am the one.
Okay, so let's see. First turn, we can recruit some spears, and we do. We actually need javelin throwers on the first turn, but we need at least 3 javelin throwers. And this is our property line is right here, so we're just gonna pop in here and hire a few of those. These are very strong, especially on Seal Faith. They only have 13 ammo, but they are like, you have to have these to take down the Marauder Horsemen, which are a huge menace. If you don't have a way to deal with them, because they will just wear you out with those throwing axes. They also have a bonus versus large, so they're kind of like Lothar and Seaguard in the sense that if they do get attacked by other large units, they do get that 18 bonus versus large, even though they don't like have spears or anything. So that's kind of cool, and they can get in there and mix it up in combat. They aren't as strong as the normal Marauders. They only have 28 melee attack and 27 defense versus 32, 38, but they can still get in there and mix it up and make some stuff happen, particularly against large units. So they're really handy. You want those. As far as the buildings go, we mentioned before, the dilemma is you never ever can get walls. There are some things over here that like say walls or something like this, but if you read it carefully, it does not say that it actually adds walls. I'm about 99% sure this does not actually give walls at any stage. All it does is it gives you more garrison, which is helpful, but it's not walls. So they can siege you on turn 1. And your growth is pretty anemic early on. As you can see, we only start with 30. As you go up, like, you get a little bit of growth, like 10 extra per, which is all right. You can invest in some more growth over here, kind of like 10, 20. So it's pretty anemic growth overall, and it's just not safe because we're going to get flanked all the time. So I'm going to end up just deleting this, because we can hire Marauders with great weapons and these javelins off of just the Norsca Wharf, which we're going to keep. So we're just going to go ahead and delete that. We could throw a money building in here and just try to hold on to it next turn, and that's probably worth. We can sell it after like 5 turns if we need to and still make a profit on it. Some of the key units we're going to go for early on are these Marauder Champions, particularly the ones with the great weapons. Can do quite a bit of damage in combat. They are heavily armored. So those are really handy. These Norscan Whalers require a smithy, so we're definitely not going to get those, but like, these are very handy to get once we finally find a place we settle down at, which may or may not be our initial starting spot depending on what's going on. But these are good to aim for because we get the 25% discount. They're very efficient. I do think that Trolls are pretty fantastic as well. They are a little bit more expensive if you can get their leadership under control. So if we can get a few items you know, to buff up the army leadership, they're very good. They have 50 melee attack and 125 weapon strength. They're pretty good. I don't think they're as good as like the Greenskin Trolls with Azog. Go check out the Azog campaign if you haven't yet. It's a pretty cool campaign. But they do have a ton of regeneration and 25% physical resist, which also offsets some of their lack of damage here. And this Troll Stupidity, if they drop below 50% damage, then they get an extra 50% health. They get 10 extra leadership and 10 extra melee. So pretty good sort of like mid-range tier 3 like anti-infantry unit. So we might check those out. We do have to go in this tree anyways in order to get up to some of these bigger things like the Frost Worms and the Famir Warriors, which are pretty cool. Ice Trolls are going to be a bit better. They do have more melee attack. They have high weapon strength, but they don't have as much armor piercing damage as the normal Trolls. They only have 75 pierce versus, it might actually be similar. These actually have 75 pierce too. Okay, so they just have 50 more normal damage. They do have Frostbite, which slows people down, which is kind of whatever. The Chilling Aura, but you're paying a very, very heavy price for them. They're 512 instead of 384. And they require a different sort of thing over here, this Offering of the Slaughter, which is okay. And then they moved up with this mod. They moved up the Skin Wolves to tier 4. Even the baseline Skin Wolves, they used to be able to get those at tier 3, which made Wulfrik a little bit stronger because he does have some upgrades for Skin Wolves. But these are pretty weak. We do start off with one. The problem is with this mod, like, all of the Javelins have anti-large. So you can't go, and you're not going to be able to run down the Marauders the Marauder Horsemen that throw the axes, so you can't really go kill those javelins. They will kill you because they get that huge anti-large bonus, and these have super low armor to start with. So they do get a bonus versus large, so good versus other large units, sort of. They do get plus 40, so pretty good versus other large if they have chariots, which we will probably fight some of these early on, but that's about it that you're going to face, these early chariots. Otherwise, they just get obliterated by spearmen. They get beaten up by the javelins, marauders. They just get outclassed by a lot of stuff. So they might be pretty good in theory, sort of, against things like Bretonnians or maybe Empires, some of those light cav, but they aren't armored. Or you can get the armored version at tier 4 as well. These are a lot better. They have 70 armor, a little bit less melee attack, but these are much, much stronger overall. And they're the same price, so I don't really understand the balancing thought process there. Like, an extra 55 armor is a big deal, and I would definitely pay, 10 melee attack? I would definitely pay 10 melee attack for that. So they used to have it to where these were tier 3, and then the armored were tier 4. But this tree is probably not going to be worth it. The wolves are okay, but once again, 30 melee attack, 20 defense. Like, those javelins are just going to turn around and beat them. They do actually count as large also, so they're going to get beaten up by the anti-large. The normal warhounds are small. You can tell by the portrait there if you've ever wondered whether it's large or small. If it has the big picture there, then it counts as large. So these really aren't worth it. This Werekin, however, is very good. So, I mean, it's possible maybe we want him. He does add some really good bonuses. So this gives a potential extra 20 armor and 20% missile resist. These guys do have some pretty good bonuses. So it's sad because you used to have a really nice path where you could just get to skin wolves at tier 3 with the Werekin and get a couple of buffs on Wulfrik, get some power that way, but it doesn't work that way this mod. At tier 4, these Famir warriors are really nice. They're pretty good costs, like 400 costs, pretty reasonable for something that's this high level. And they have 90 weapon strength, and you can get them either anti-infantry or anti-large. This is 15 anti-large. This is, I think, 10 anti-infantry. This has armor sundering as well, and magical attack, so it cuts through physical resist. And they have 110 armor. So these are very good, and they also have fast attack. So we don't know just how fast they attack, but it's pretty dang fast. And I think they have nice missile resist, too. So they have 25% extra missile resist. In addition to this, they have 40% missile resist. So it's not quite like having a shield, but it's pretty close. And I'm pretty sure, because they have a great weapon, they are likely going to be area of effect attacks as well. So those are very, very nice. Now these have Bone Crusher, which lowers, I think, melee defense a little bit, depending on which side you get. And you can get these dudes, which are okay. Get the Fire Magic or Shadow Magic. They're a type of wizard. There's another human wizard over here that you can get at tier 3, which are going to be cheaper but not as strong in combat. These actually can fight pretty decently in combat as well. Yeah, those are good. And then eventually you get a Frost Worm. It's like a pretty cheap dragon. It actually does have a breath. I forgot that it actually has a breath attack. So it does have a 3 breath attack. It's weaker than a lot of dragons. It only has 7,000 health instead of, like, some of the bigger dragons will have 10, 11, sometimes even 12,000 health. But some of those big name dragons, like the High Elf dragons, will be closer to 1,000 gold. This is only 576. So it's much more affordable. It has lower melee attack and defense than some of those other ones, but still pretty good armor piercing damage, still causes terror. It's got the chilling aura to slow things down, so it is weak to fire, but really, really good bargain as far as dragons go. Hey, thanks for the sub. I appreciate it. And then we have these mammoths. Now, remember that Wulfrik does get bonuses to mammoths. They are expensive, but they can crush infantry units. Now, oddly enough, this has anti-large, the feral version of 30. So I guess they're kind of good against other large units. So I think they probably are okay against small, but the issue here with the feral mammoths is they have only 30 armor, which is very, very vulnerable, and only 30 melee defense. So they just get destroyed by javelins and spears, halberds, all that stuff, especially because they're not anti-infantry anymore, and they go berserk, so you lose control of them. So these are much worse than they were in the baseline game, but they're okay. We also have giants as an option here. Now, the mammoths do not require secondary buildings. That is something to consider. The giants do require a secondary building over here. Giants have been buffed with this game, so where they have 50% missile resist now. 50 armor, which is pretty good. 70 melee attack, still lots of health. Bone Crusher. They are anti-infantry, so they do kind of that splash attacks, which are pretty nice. And they have some bonuses that they put in here, so they give everybody extra 5 melee defense. Does some extra damage if people are really close to them, so that's kind of cool with Trample. And then for 75, I guess every 90 seconds you can activate this for 30 seconds, which gives bonus versus large, physical resist, and melee defense. So the different types of giants for different factions have different bonuses now. So they're a lot, and they're cheap. They're only 512. So these are definitely worth considering. Before, they're just completely worthless for the most part with most factions, except in some very limited circumstances, because the mammoths are always better. But now they're way cheaper than most of the other mammoths out there. And they give all these buffs. That's pretty handy. Now, once we get to the actual war mammoths up here, these get stronger. They don't have the rampage anymore. They have 70 armor, which is much better. These are anti-infantry, so they get 30 bonus versus infantry. And they have ammunition and stuff that fires off their back. So, pretty good. Kind of like an Arachnarok spider, but anti-infantry instead of anti-large. And then the Mammoth War Shrine, I believe both of these require this extra building over here. Gives off some of these buffs where it's extra fire damage on everybody, and then armor piercing, weapon damage, or favor of ruinous powers, which gives out melee attack and leadership. So that'd be great to put with the trolls, kind of end game if we do want some trolls. So anyways, that's most of our units. I think there's an event later on where we fight Archaon when he comes down. I assume if we beat Archaon, this is what it means to be the new Everchosen. So we can probably start hiring some of these chosen. Now, I'm not sure if, like, how many of those we can hire, like what the cap is on them. I guess the cap system isn't, yeah, this actually has caps here. I don't know how we get more caps on them, but we'll find out. And over here, we can get some Feral Manticores at tier 3, which are okay, and a couple of wizards. And then eventually, we can get this all the way up. We can get these legendary units, but we have to fully commit to one god and have that all the way leveled up, and then we can get some of these good sort of anti-infantry units. Okay, so I said I wasn't going to talk too much at the beginning, but there we go. There's all the units to start with. Look at our text here. We just want to go like through here, just get all these buffs for the Marauders early on. This is for monsters, so we'll check that out later and to go on monster hunts, but we really need to be kind of mid to late game for that. You can go hunt down some big monsters, do some quest battles, get some bonuses, so that can potentially be pretty cool down the line. So you basically earn your regiments of renown by doing that, which is kind of fun. And then over here, you seek out specific factions that you want to take down, and you have to research the ability to occupy those places. And if you take their towns and occupy it, then you get different bonuses. So for instance, if we take Moraliano, then we get 10% research rate, 5% upkeep reduction on all units, and global recruitment +3. Which is pretty cool. If we take Corone, we get extra 250% from trade, plus 15% growth, and a few other things. So that's pretty handy. So there's one of those for pretty much every other major faction out there where you can hunt them down and get these different bonuses. So we'll look at those a little bit more as they become more relevant. But that will do it so far. Okay, diplomacy. Check it out. Everybody hates you. Not doing any diplomacy. And we're hiring.
Who's next?
That it is. Okay. So you can only occupy places, like we said a little bit ago, up in Norsca, and that's where you have to build out all of your money buildings and all of that kind of stuff. So that can become pretty lucrative up there. And then as we go out and take over the rest of the world, most of our money is going to come from sacking places and occasionally raising them, and occupying ports can be pretty good as well. And some of those like specialty occupied hamlets or whatever can be pretty good. Now, there is a god system in here, kind of like what you have with Chaos, where the 4 gods are represented by different animals. So you've got the serpent, which is Slaanesh, you have the crow, which is Nurgle, you have the hound, which is Khorne, and then you have the eagle, which is Tzeentch. And as you burn some of these towns down to the south, then you level up some of your different bonuses towards the gods. And once you level them all the way up, you get different thresholds. But you want to commit to one god as you go. And we're just going to do faction-wide caps. You can do army caps. I don't recommend it. Basically limits every army you to 6 special units, 4 elite units, and 2 rare units, and the classification can get kind of hazy depending on which faction it is. Faction-wide caps means that there's only a certain amount of specific kinds of units that you can hire, period, in your faction. So, for example, I can only have X number of giants based on how many buildings I build that allow me to build giants, or there are certain technologies and other things you can do to buff that up. But I kind of like that. It forces you, it makes the units feel more special and more rare, and it forces you to try to meet certain objectives to get some of those high-end units. So I'm going to do faction-wide caps, but not the army caps. I've tried these before. It dramatically benefits some factions over others.
Where's my next?
So we'll go with this. A new mechanic. Okay, we'll go ahead and start the money builder before I forget here. Okay. A new mechanic that got added into the game is the ship system. Now, only Wulfrik can do this, but basically it's almost like a Blackheart Corsair type of thing that Wulfrik carries around with him. So he's like a horde that can hire some of these units and get some of these buffs for his own army as you go through. So we can get up to an additional 10% upkeep reduction, and I think that's all the time. That might only be when you're at sea, but I believe it's all the time. Horde recruitment capacity, extra sacking. Now that's all characters. That's not just him. So that's pretty handy. So you can get like some buffs here. Casual replenishment, movement speed, and then when you're at sea, you get 4 enemy units, I guess, when you attack. I'm not sure. But then we can also hire some units. So this is kind of cool that we can tech up to tier 4 and go over and pick and grab either some Famir warriors or some of these war mammoths at tier 4. So you can potentially get this stuff if you're rich, if you win a lot of fights early and gain a lot of property. You can potentially get this stuff at like turn 20 or something. Whereas in a normal town, it would probably take you like to turn 50 to get some of this. So we can rush some of these Famirs, or we can rush some of these mammoths, which I think would be pretty cool. But it's sort of expensive to level these things up, and it has the standard kind of horde growth mechanic here. So you're not in any rush to spend this surplus growth. You can just sit on it for a while if you'd like. But just like other growth buildings, I suspect that whenever we pick one of these, then the rest of them are going to become more expensive. So you want to be careful and selective with what you're picking. The Marauders are okay too, but I think just skipping up and getting these big ticket things up here are probably going to be our best bargain. But anyways, we're not going to do that right now because we need as much money as we possibly can, because some of these early fights do get pretty tricky. I might come down here and pick this up. Sometimes it's kind of not worthwhile to pick up some of these treasures, but
Wulfrik.
I'll bite, sure. Let's see what we get here. I'm just going to take the miserly treasure. I know people want me to do the fight, but I just cannot afford to get injured and lose a lot of units in this. And the last time I did this, we had to fight a pretty decent Vampire Coast in one of my other runs. And we got like 2,500 gold, which is okay. But we also a lot of our units were very injured doing that. So I'm not sure if it's worth. Although, I don't know. We do get extra experience on Wulfrik for doing that. We are going to replenish a little bit this turn. I think I'm just going to take a small. That's fine, I guess.
My challenge? Undeniable.
Okay, so I don't think we're going to lose too much by just running over here next turn. So we got an extra 500 gold, not a huge deal. It would take us 2 turns anyways to come over here and hit this longship graveyard, so that's fine. Okay, so we're building that out. Don't need anything else here. Oh, these are the gods. So we're going to go for this one right here, the eagle. And the main reason for that, the research rate is really important, especially like some of those techs to occupy things like Altdorf and things like Moraliano. That can take a little while to level those up, and we want to level those up as fast as possible so we can go take these places and start getting those bonuses. which is really handy. If they take it back, you still get to keep the bonus. Like, all you have to do is occupy the place in order to get that research. So the 25% research rate is very nice. 25% cooldown on spells is very, very strong once we eventually get some more magic users. 50 extra winds of magic is phenomenal, and +3 public order is great everywhere. That's going to save us a lot of hassle. And then eventually we can get a Lord of Change, which is like the bird god thing. So that's going to be pretty sweet. The bird god I heard sucked in the base game. I didn't get him, but we'll see how it goes. I'm interested. I bet they probably buffed him for SFO mod. We'll see. They're all pretty good, though. You can go Nurgle as well. You can get replenishment, extra growth if you want it, enemy hero action success chance. The big thing is, like, everyone gets a plague once you get to level 3, which is like, it's all right, but it just doesn't like feel interactive and cool. Faster build time on everything. So I think Nurgle is probably the weakest here, although I did Nurgle in the Chaos campaign. It doesn't give us regeneration or anything, which is kind of sad, or like poison on any of our units. But that can be okay, I guess, sometimes. 20% movement range is very, very nice. Lord recruit rank is okay. Charge bonus is kind of whatever. And eventually you get a Chaos Sorcerer. Now, I don't know what this guy does, if he's a Lord or a hero or what, but supposedly he could potentially be pretty good, so that could be interesting. Upkeep for Lords and Heroes could be good. We're probably not going to have a ton of heroes. I mean, you basically just have wizards. I guess you have the Skin Wolves as well. That's okay. I would say that's probably the second weakest. That's the third overall. And then the Hound. You do get the Iceforge Legion, which is very nice if you look under Regiments of Renown. Or of Renown, rather. This right here. Now, it's basically like your standard Hell Cannon that you'd have with Chaos, but there's 4 of them. So there's 4 things that do 560 damage each. So I think that could potentially be very, very strong. And you also get kind of standard Khorne type of things. You get weapon strength on melee infantry units, so that does not count your large monsters, unfortunately. Vigor, a little bit of vigor loss reduction, which is kind of whatever. Recruitment duration -1 for all units. That's okay. Income from raiding. Once again, we're not going to be raiding a lot. We're mostly just going to be sacking and burning. But raiding does add up, so that could be nice every now and then. You get some experience, so that's okay. I still think that this one's the best, though. Like, magic is extremely powerful in this game, especially on this mod. And then having the extra 50 winds of magic and cooldown to your spells, research, public order, and getting a special lord. That sounds like a really fun bonus at the end, and it sounds like some pretty good bonuses overall. So that's what we're going to be shooting for. Okay.
To the 4 corners.
So what other mechanics? So whenever we kill, Norsca is one of the most unique factions, by the way, which I think makes it have a very fun play style and fun to watch, fun to play overall. If you kill another legendary lord for another faction, then the faction has to confederate with you, and that's really one of the only ways that you get a confederation with other Norscans. So we just have to hunt down their lords and kill them. And then we get all their stuff, which is pretty sweet. So that it can be very snowbally up top. The other lords can do this too. If they start beating other faction lords, they gain all of their property. So if you don't snowball quickly, someone else can snowball by killing other people and start taking over. So you got to be swift. You got to be aggressive. So that's pretty handy. Okay, so this is going to be our first fight coming up here. We're going to have at least 2 fights in this episode, I hope. We might get a third. But this is going to be our first one right here. Okay, we're going to do rumors are false. So that means that Empire could potentially fight each other.
Yes.
I think that's more realistic, a little bit more fun. Now, we could go with this stance. I don't think we're going to have enough movement to sack and occupy if we do that, though. So I just... Like, this stance pretty much gives you 10 melee attack at the cost of 5, -5 defense, but you have perfect vigor. So it's nice. Your units can rampage, though, which is really bad for these Skin Wolves. If I charge them into somebody and then they rampage and then spears come over and get them, like, it's very difficult to control them. So I think we're just going to do normal stance for now. And we're going to want to sack and then occupy this as well. So let's go ahead and fight it. So, I mean, this is going to be a pretty tough fight. They've got 8, 9, 10. I think that's, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So they have 10. So, yeah, basically the same amount we do. So this is what I'm talking about. You don't really have, like, a good edge. Like, we don't have a good elite unit to start with. The Skin Wolves are just not even that great. Like, I've considered dismissing them before. It's because they cost so much money for how little they put out. But I just need as many units as I can possibly get early on. You can flank them into the backs of like axemen or whatever, but they're all right. Like, they'll give you some good kills. They can run down stuff and get kills at the end. The Ice Wolf Chariot's also not that great. And some of these other factions we're going to be fighting early, they're going to start with like frost worms. Like, they might have a frost worm. There's one of them that starts with a mammoth. And they eventually get like 10 chariots or some crap early on, and all you can get are a bunch of like melee, like infantry. You can imagine how that goes against like 10 chariots. So it's definitely an extremely difficult start position. I'm someone that thinks like Chaos was definitely very manageable. It was challenging to start off with, but it was manageable. You know, I think that Queek is kind of a walk in the park. I like Queek a lot, but he's like rated as very hard. This is definitely not a normal campaign, normal start position. It's very, very irregular. I mean, I guess if you're cheesing it or something, you know, if you're pulling like a Legend of Total War special and you just sit there and like multi-sack the same town over and over again to power level your lord at the beginning, yeah, okay, maybe it's a little more manageable, but I love Legend, by the way. I don't want to rag on him too much, but the man does like to do his cheese. He's a self-professed cheeser. So now is our time. That's just the type of thing I don't like to do in my campaigns. I like to go out there and get aggressive, try to get in a little trouble, get a little spicy.
Marauders! Hunter of men, roving! Yes, Lord! Nose on the sheep!
So we're just, these guys are trying to come off, cut us off a little bit.
Charge them! Yes! Wulfrik the Wanderer! Full formation! Bring us to carnage! Wulfrik the Wanderer! Your will? So be it! Rah! Now! Love them! Do not scatter!
Whoa, do they not have skirmish mode? What the flip? Oh, they actually do not have skirmish mode. Okay, I thought they had skirmish mode for some reason. Okay, not a huge deal, but it's alright. Use this here. I guess we could have hit it down that line too. So these are actually holding up pretty well against those javelins, despite the fact that the javelins have those kind of bonuses against large that we talked about before.
Shot them!
Oh, no. Get out. Why are y'all in here? I guess they tried to chase. I need to put them on the non-chase thing. Let's see if we can hit these dudes in the back and get them a break. Our spears, so we gotta be a little careful here. But we do cause fear. All of our units cause fear, so they should run, I think. Being charged in the back by fear causing stuff will do that to you.
My God's call! Your will!
Back up. Don't hit our own people.
Yes! Moving! Faster!
Trying to get around and just flank and shoot these guys on the side.
Wulfrik the Wanderer! Chaos Marauders! For the Blood God! Ah! That's what the Masters bid! Yes! So be it! Now! The Dark Gods command me! Quick! Corn demands! The Changer directs us! Very well! Ah! That's what the Masters bid! Eat your souls! No! The inescapable one!
Don't want to hit my own guys too much.
What?
What are these? Oh, spears.
Faster!
These dudes never die. Come on.
Charge! Retreat! So be it!
It's taking years to kill these guys. What is going on?
The Dark Gods command me! Bring us the carnage! Our masters desert us! Get them!
They're just like, it feels like they're just unbreakable in this campaign. That's the most annoying thing. It just feels like they have infinite leadership. Like, all of my units cause fear because of my passive. Like, they all drop the enemy's leadership by 8, which is huge. These Marauders only have like 60 leadership. That's what I'm saying. It's so hard to get any sort of edge because they get all these bonuses.
Give us carnage!
I think we got it. Yeah, I mean, we're definitely taking some heat in these fights. Well, they have a pretty high arcing shot. I didn't realize they could throw that far up. I mean, maybe I can fire them in traffic. Just always a little wary of hitting my own people. So yeah, that little boat thing or whatever that he throws down just really doesn't, like, it does not do that much damage. At least as far as I could tell. It gave me Pyrrhic victory even though I deployed less units than them and killed twice as many people. Now we're going to sack and occupy this just because we want the replenishment. It's going to give us like 15 replenishment for a sack. We're going to technically lose some money on this because if we were to repair, it would cost us more money to repair than the money we're going to take in. But we're not going to repair it. We're just going to let it fall into just eventually disappear. Now, we only get -2 public order. You can see those javelins, they, you know, some of them were caught up fighting in hand-to-hand combat a lot too, which wasn't, you know, ideal for them, but they still got like, you know, 100-something kills. They're super strong. Okay, what do we get here? Obsidian Trinket. Okay, pretty worthless. Oh, we didn't get level 2 off of that? I think when we occupy the town, we'll get it though, hopefully. We only get 8% on the sack. I thought we got 15. Either way, we need this. So we're gonna sack.
Wandering.
We really need these levels.
To the four corners. They can't hide. Let's fight.
You get a little bit of experience for occupying. Okay. So once again, our stuff is damaged. It would cost us more, but we just mainly wanted the replenishment.
What? I'll handle it.
Okay, we're just like maxing out. Every time we can hire, we just want to hire. We need to get up to like 30 units eventually, like as soon as possible. Okay, so you just beef up your fearsome warriors. That's for your marauders, marauder berserkers, all that stuff. That's what you want to get first. There are a couple other things that can be pretty good. I think that this voice of the gods or whatever for extra leadership bonus is really nice. Yeah, so we're getting some replenishment here. Not building anything else out. Okay, we don't want to do anything with the ships yet because we're saving all of our money for offense. Now, one thing that you can do if you take over some places, you can awaken the tribe, which we're going to show in a little bit. And then as soon as you awaken them, you can force a confederation with them. So it gives you like a bonus 2,000 gold, and you basically get a lord and 7 or 8 units for free. Now, you have to pay the upkeep on them, but you don't have to pay the hiring cost. And it sounds kind of gamey. It's like, oh my gosh, that looks gamey. But trust me, like that's the only way. That's the only way you can fight these other units. Because if you try to take on these towns, like what we're going to face up here, it's going to be like minimum a 20 stack with a town that's going to have like 10 units in it. Because the garrisons using the SFO mod are crazy. Like they just have so many units early on. So it's very difficult to be aggressive and take over stuff in the baseline game, or in the modded game. In the base game, the garrisons, especially for Norsca, are much, much weaker. So So it's a lot easier to kind of just snowball off your main units. But it gives a defender a much, much higher advantage than they would usually have, even in towns that don't have walls. So in order to keep up with that, and in order to keep up with the crazy economy that the AI gets on Legendary, you have to do sort of the awaken and occupy strategy early on. Beastman Rising? Yeah, sure, we'll let the Beastman show up. It makes it a little spicier in the endgame.
The eternal challenger.
Might shave, 5 turns off as well if people just start burning some of our adversaries late game. This is probably going to be like a, I don't know, 60 episode campaign or something, maybe more.
My challenge? Undeniable.
Okay. Go from here. I'm just going to get over here as fast as we possibly can. Now we should actually be able to go even further. Once he's on the sea, a little bit of extra bonus gets in there. So as you can see, he can book it on the sea. Like, he can really run. Okay, so we're just going to pop over here.
Ahead! Embarking!
Okay. So sometimes you got to get that extra little click in there. It's just, the game's kind of squirrely when you're on sea and off sea over and over again. It can get a little weird. Okay, so this is turn 1. This is making us 125 per turn. We paid 1,000 for it, and it sells for 600. Okay, so after 5 turns, it's paid for itself. So we can sell it after 5 turns, and it will still have made us some money. Okay. Any extra turns is just bonus. Okay, so we'll get probably one more fight here at Bay of Blades. So I'm thinking a lot of times we just got to let that initial province go. So I think that Nordland's just going to come over with some crazy stuff. And I believe the best strategy is probably just work your way over towards Throg ASAP. Although it is very tempting to go for kind of the middle here and try to pick up Varg and finish off Skaeling. But Varg in particular is tough. They have a mammoth that they start with, and they're the ones that usually crank out the chariots early. So we'll just kind of see which kinds of opportunities present themselves to us. We might be able to stop by the Aetherlings first. I would love, love, love to pick up their Frostworm. If we could do that, that would help out a ton. Ooh, a 20 stack of Beastmen already right there. Looks delicious. Burn that for me. Population surplus. Doesn't matter.
Champions fall. I'll see it through.
Okay.
No escape.
Now I do want to go for this. I think these guys can already go berserk though. I don't know if I want my javelins to go berserk. Yeah, let's not do the berserk thing. Oh yeah, hold on. Kislev will probably pay us a little bit to go to war.
The bear roars at its enemies. I hear it snarl. Can you?
Oh yeah, I hear it, buddy. Trust me on that.
Undefeated.
So we're gonna do a normal attack here. Let's do it. Now, Throg, at least in the baseline game, like I said, he gets that edge early. Like, his edge is... now, Throg, to be fair, in the baseline campaign, that was one where I did have to, you know... If you can ambush the dude out on his main property, Aetherling or whatever, then you can just kind of snowball from there. And once he gets his trolls rolling, his ice trolls are much cheaper in the baseline game. Once you get those trolls going, it's almost impossible to stop because he has some really good things that give nice leadership to the trolls. Now, we've got a lot of javelins here, so we're really going to have to try to micro these bad boys.
They will succumb! Chaos Marauders! Your will! Mortal fool! Khorne demands! Charge them! Chaos Marauders! Get them! Very well! With speed! Mortal fool! Now! Now! Faster! Faster! Our blades hunger! Charge! Take it, Southerner! Gah! Quickly now! What? Close on the shield! Chaos Marauders! Ravage them! They will succumb! Blood! Faster! Charge! Chaos Marauders! Get them! Get them! Run! Har! Charge them! Roar! Faster!
I let those get caught again, which is not good.
So be it! Charge! Chaos Marauders! Yes! Gah! Ah!
Boys, get out. Let's go.
Your will! Drop them! Ah! Chaos Marauders!
Our berserkers are about to bite the dust here.
Chaos Marauders! No! That's what the masters bid! Love them! Khorne demands! This area is sacred! Yes! Chaos Marauders! That's what the masters bid! Love them! Gah!
Yeah, they pretty much got wiped
Take
there.
it, Southerner!
I forgot to even use these.
Go! Quick!
How are these dudes outrunning me?
Drag us to the zones! Khorne demands! We fight!
Tell you what, let's
Take
just
it,
go ahead and...
Southerner! Chaos Marauders! So be it! Mortal fool! Yes, Lord! Tremble, mortals! Chaos Marauders! Now is our time! Love them! Get them! So be it! They will succumb! Yes! Chaos Marauders! So be it! For the Blood God! Faster! Our blades hunger! Chaos Marauders! Moving!
Are they like gaming my system?
No! Disembowel! Your will! Charge! Chaos Marauders!
I'm about to solve your game, son.
Now! Fight! Drop them!
No, I just like that saying for some reason.
Rah! Faster! Our blades hunger! Rah! Get them! Quick! What do you bid?
Yo, why do they have a white flag but they're running at me? What is this?
Now is our time!
Y'all trolling.
Now! Yes, Lord! Your will? Yes! Onward! Consider it done! What do you bid? Quick! Fight! Get them!
Berserkers are kind of expensive for what they are too. Like, yeah, they're good, but like double the price of the other Marauders. Took my daughter into daycare early. I'm like recording this pretty early in the morning. I just ended up staying up all night. She got up, or my wife like texted me and said she was up. Like had a nightmare or something asking for dad. So I go in there, and you know, she wasn't crying at the time. She's kind of going back to sleep, and then I was like, hey, and gave her a hug and stuff. I'm like, you want to go back to bed? She's like, no. She's like, up. Like she wanted out. Then she started running around the room. It's like 6 in the morning. I was like, all right, fine, I'm taking you to daycare. So I dropped her off at daycare at like 6:30. We'll see how long she lasts. I usually let her sleep in till like 10 or something and drop her off at like 10:30. So we'll see how she feels about getting up so early later on in the day. I'll be like, Dad-Dad's going to be sleeping. Dad-Dad's going to go to sleep from like 9 a.m. till 4 p.m. or something. It's summertime. I don't got classes to teach. I just got some channel stuff to keep up with. I can do that anytime. That's funny. We'll see if she likes what she asked for. She seemed to actually look like she was kind of having fun getting dropped off early there, playing with the big kids. There were like 5 kids there, and a lot of them looked like they were probably 5 or 6. She's like 2. That was fun. Okay, so we're going to liberate Sorrel here. So you leveled up, so we're gonna go ahead and just here's some warriors. Buff that up. Hunt down Sorrel.
War unceasing.
So it says beaten. He'll accept any terms to stay alive. Yep.
To be honest, I'd rather be raiding, but you have my time.
Confederate him. He'll give you all of his money. Starts with 2,000. And yeah, boom. So the big benefit there is you get this little ward.
Overrun the world.
With the spears and all of his stuff. Now, I don't like these very much. They are super close range. 70 is like ultra close. But it's pretty much a free unit, so we'll hold on to that.
Chieftain of the tribe.
And then we just want to walk. I do kind of want to hit the replenishment.
What?
We should be able to fight and take that next turn.
The eternal challenger.
I mean, I could just dash up here and not get the extra replenishment. That's probably fine.
Executing.
Just dash to like right here. So I just want to go to like right here.
Heading out.
Despoil.
And this dude, you get to move on the very first turn. So we're gonna hand off all of our units over to him because we get the cost reduction.
This way.
And we'll hold on to this lord, even though he is costing us a little bit of extra money. We just need every fighter we can possibly get for some of these things. Okay, Bay of Blades, we're just going to leave this as is. Remember, we're not building up any of this stuff by choice because it's going to be very difficult to hold it until we take out some of these enemies. And I don't want to feel like I have to stop a back door, so I just don't even want to invest anything in it. Especially with this ship mechanic, like I said, if we can stabilize and just get the money, we can just buff up these ships enough to where we can get some of these Premier Bale Fiends. And then just as long as we have a port somewhere, then we're able to hire javelins and great weapons. And that's good enough for me. Like, yeah, we won't get the champions. Whatever. It's I mean, the champions are nice, but
War unceasing.
just the standard dudes with the javelin throwers are fine too. Okay. We got that going on. No one else wants to play nice with us. I mean, like, we have a non-aggression with these dudes, but I mean, they don't like us that much, and we're just gonna kill them. But we gotta wait until turn 10 before we can cancel that contract. Okay, so getting replenishment.
No escape.
This dude can just walk over here to the other line, the other side of this line. Raid. Give us that 10 gold, baby. In turn. And we can awaken that tribe again at Sarl. So we can get another, like, 7 fresh units. Then we can... oh, I should have recruited units. I forgot about that. So we're going to be about 3 units back here. We could have hired some more Marauders. Hey, thanks for the sub. I appreciate it. Instead of raiding for that 10 gold. That could matter. Could matter. I mean, if we go for the Aetherlings, we're going to have a ton of units anyways, but it's going to be hard to beat them. So we may have needed those 3 extra units. We'll see. Hopefully that doesn't come back to bite me. We should have somewhere in the neighborhood, without recruiting those 3, we should still have like 25 to 30 units after we awaken at Sarl and then confederate those guys. We may not even have the money to have hired these 3 more units. We'll see. It's probably a mistake, though. I probably should have hired them. I don't know what the... Like, why don't y'all burn this? What are y'all doing? They're trolling. Usually you get some kind of public order thing here. Yeah, stability. It does help out a little bit early on.
Enslave the
Southerners. 56 minutes. Okay, so we're just gonna... We'll do this next turn. Or next time. What we're going to do is we're going to go in, just do one more, like, kind of easy fight at Sarl. We're going to have to do the fight because we don't want to auto-resolve and just have, like, you know, someone take a random amount of damage. And then we're going to take a look over at Aceling's Conclave. And then this is where we have to make a choice. Do we want to go, after we take this, do we want to go this way, potentially take this out, maybe have a chance at a Frostworm? Or do we want to go this way and try to knock out these guys at Doom Keep? If we don't hit these guys early, then they will come down and start burning our stuff down here, which, once again, may or may not matter that much. If a rebellion goes down over here anyways, which is likely, then it'll be a Chaos Rebellion, which means it's going to get burned anyway, so we'll see. I'm kind of okay with that place probably burning. Because I think Nordland's going to come over and burn it anyways at some point. It's just so close to their border. But anyways, we'll figure it out next time. So thank you very much for tuning in. Special thanks to Zach and Joel for sponsoring this campaign. I really appreciate it. Anyone else out there who'd like to sponsor a campaign, just email me at thestrategyprofessor@gmail.com. Let me know what you have in mind. Be sure to like and subscribe if you enjoy the content. Consider supporting by hitting that join button. It's less than $0.25 a day. Really adds up, helps out a ton on the channel, lets me keep making all this awesome content for you, so that my wife doesn't throw me out on the street for playing so many hours of Warhammer. But anyways, that's going to be it. Have a good day, and I'll see you next time.